building a better Bay Area. Moving forward, finding solutions. This is ABC 7 News.
Hi there, I'm Kristen Z. You're watching Getting Answers live on ABC 7 and wherever you stream. We ask experts your questions every day at 3 to get answers for you in real time. Today, transit trouble. Bay Area public transportation systems have lost a lot of riders during the pandemic, causing worries of gridlock and emissions. Can state lawmakers plan to unify our region's transit be the answer? State Senator Josh Becker will join us. Also, Oscar nominations are out with surprises and snubs. San Francisco Chronicle's film critic Mick LaSalle will be here to break it all down for us. But first, 1 week from today, the state's indoor mask mandate will expire and not be renewed. That word coming down from Governor Newsom yesterday, immediately drawing both praise from those who say it's about time and criticism from those who say it's premature. Here to talk about this big move, its impact, and all things COVID is UCSF infectious diseases specialist, Dr. Peter Chin Hong. Dr. Chin Hong, great to have you on.
Thanks for having me on, Kristen.
All right, before we get on with this, I want to point out, I think this is important, that the lifting of the mask mandate, okay, that doesn't apply to people who are unvaccinated. So if you're unvaccinated, you need to keep on masking. The mandate's last day is February 15th and won't be renewed. So Dr. Chin Hong, I think a lot of people are missing this, that this means you can legally, technically take your mask off indoors if you're vaccinated on February 16th. That's Wednesday. Okay, so don't mark the wrong day on your calendar. I mean, they're not going to police you, but still important to remember. Okay, with that said, Dr. Chin Hong, is this the right time for the lifting of the state mandate? What do you think?
I think it's definitely a move in the right direction. Whether or not it applies to every single person in California is really the question. But what you're seeing, Kristen, is a move from a sledgehammer, let's everybody do all the same things, to more individual choice and a family choice. So as the Omicron goes and dips very dramatically low, this is the right time to have this conversation. And, you know, we're in a very different place from a year ago. We have a lot of people vaccinated and boosted. We have monoclonal antibodies that are increasing in availability and pills that can keep people at risk from getting to the hospital.
Okay, so you're saying when you look at the Bay Area metrics, cases, hospitalizations, and then you look at the other things that are available, such as treatments, you feel like this is the right time to pull the trigger, if you will, on lifting the state mask mandate. Yes? Yes,
but again, the asterisk is not in all situations. Like in healthcare, we're still going to be masking universally in nursing homes, in public transportation, and in schools, most importantly.
Right. Which I will get to in a bit. And it's also important to note that businesses can still ask you to wear a mask if that's what they choose, right? Employers can still absolutely have that, and there are settings where they'll still be required. But Dr. Chin Hong, when the state rule is no more, then it's up to the counties. And right now, only Marin County does not have its own mask mandate. The other 8 counties do. San Francisco, Alameda, and Contra Costa said they will evaluate and decide whether to keep their own mandates. Do you think any Bay Area counties need to keep theirs for some reason?
Personally, not exactly at this moment, although I'm still worried about the hospital capacity in some of the smaller counties where they might just have a few ICU beds. I think that's the only question I have. But again, hospitalizations have precedent going down in many areas, so hopefully that won't continue to be a problem.
Okay. In making this move, can we take a quick look, super quick, at other nations that have lifted their restrictions, the mask in particular, and how they're doing? Maybe there'll be a sign as to whether, you know, this move will change things for us, like, at all.
Yeah, so I think the most dramatic case of a country's approach to the new COVID or the new way of looking at the pandemic is Denmark, as people know, because their cases have sort of hovered for a very, very high level for a long time. But what was happening was that their hospitalizations were actually coming down before the cases in the community. Their vaccination rate is above 90%, very high. Their hospital capacity wasn't being stretched. So they decided as a country to not focus on the infection curve, but rather focus on the hospital curve.
Okay. I should note that's a higher vaccination rate than us, but all right, that's useful. You mentioned schools earlier. So, right, this mandate that's being lifted next week doesn't include schools. State health officials are still debating when to lift that mandate, if at all. Should schools follow suit, you think?
I mean, I think schools will follow suit eventually. I think the move from Burlingame, for example, to not require masks outdoors is a baby step again in the right direction. But whether or not I would run to schools now and have students yank the mask off might be a little bit too early. Again, things are happening so rapidly now. Omicron is happening and descending so quickly that it may take some time for people to recalibrate. And probably of the recalibration, the school is a place we just want to be as controlled as possible.
Right. Well, I mean, is one of the considerations when under fives might get vaccinated, because right now they don't have an approved vaccine, although it's coming?
Yes. So some people have, said, could we use a metric of, say, above 80% vaccination before you reduce or take away masks in schools? Or should we look at some other, metric? And some others say, well, if you're just taking away masks, just take away masks for everyone. LA, for example, still has both indoor and outdoor mask mandates in schools. They probably have the strictest sort of roadmap where they require, you to be in the orange zone.
Right.
And all of California, except for like a couple of counties, are in the red zone right now in terms of high transmission.
Okay. You mentioned Burlingame. I have to say, like, when I first read that, I didn't think that was that big of a deal in terms of how much of a difference it really is from what's happening now, because as it stands now, when kids are eating lunch outdoors on their school campus in the Bay Area, I mean, what I'm familiar with is that they take their masks off, they eat, they're near each other, they're outside. So to me, that's not that big of a step. Like, it's not really stretching really far, but I guess just to announce it and put that in kind of a policy is a bigger step in itself.
Yeah, it's rather, you're right, Kristen. It's probably not practically changing much of what has happened, but rather a metaphor for where we're moving to. And I think people just needed those kinds of steps towards normalcy rather than sort of being in limbo and not knowing what's going on.
Okay, are there places, Dr. Chinham, where you would still choose to wear a mask come next Wednesday, even without a mandate?
Yeah, so I think if I'm,
of course, where you work.
Yeah. I mean, I think if I go to a crowded indoor grocery store at rush hour and have a long grocery list, I probably would wear my mask still, because even though I'm boosted, I know that I'm not going to go to the hospital very sick. I just think it's still a drag to get infected. So luckily, I haven't gotten infected yet. So I don't want to be put into isolation and have, and put my colleagues at work out of having to cover me. So I think those are the considerations I have. But apart from that, I think I'm more courageous in going to eat indoors. I'm not going to wear my mask outdoors necessarily. So, and then with the gym rule, I feel more courageous about, surrounded by people I believe to be vaccinated and boosted, that I can go to the gym and feel a little bit more courageous about not wearing my mask in that stable cohort or stable group of people.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your personal thoughts on that. Gives us some food for thought. A couple of other important news today, not related to the indoor mask mandate being lifted in California. The CDC just shortened the interval, right, between shots. Is that for the immunocompromised? Tell us the details there.
Yeah, so I think they were finding out that people who were immune compromised were having a hard time getting a fourth shot at the drugstore or when they made appointments. And there was a lot of confusion, so they gave more latitude. So if you remember, immune compromised individuals, to get to the 2 shots of where everybody else is, they need 3 shots. So our 2 is their 3. So the 4th shot for them is like a booster shot for us. And instead of getting it at month 5, they are giving the latitude of getting a shot at month 3, because the goal isn't really to boost them, it's really to increases their chances of getting any antibody response. So in a sense, it doesn't really matter, or it doesn't really matter to wait for 5 whole months. You just want to give somebody a fighting chance of getting an antibody response.
Okay. There's also new evidence that the pandemic is causing a lot of stress that we've kind of all known anecdotally, but that stress can lead to a very serious broken heart syndrome. What's that about, and who is it afflicting?
Yeah, so it's mainly inflicting perimenopausal women and older women. And what it is people present with like symptoms of a heart attack, shortness of breath, chest pain, dizziness, and it's a sudden physical or emotional stress that weakens the muscle of the heart, and the heart can't pump that much. And it's reversible, but it is, it's said that women, older women have increased this by more than 10 times in the last few years. And the pandemic has increased some of these cases coming to the hospital. So it's really interesting that stress or brain-heart connection is really real. And that stress of the pandemic and situations can definitely affect the pumping of the heart.
Oh, all right. That's another reason that we just all got to pull together and have this pandemic end very soon. Dr. Peter Chin Hong, thank you so much. Always great getting your expertise.
Thanks so much, Kristen.
All right, coming up next, simplifying public transportation in the Bay Area. That's the goal of a bill introduced by State Senator Josh Becker. He'll be joining us live with more on how this plan could affect you. We'll be right back.
In commercial break.
All right, thanks for joining us, everybody. Those of you who had questions, sorry I really couldn't get to them today because we had limited time with Dr. Chin Hong and there was much to discuss. But I do want to address Mira's question, Mira Shaw. While I'm not a doctor, and I'm happy to post your question to Dr. Chin Hong separately, just to ensure that. But from what I've heard in the past, that if you are boosted, and you sound like you're more boosted even than others, and if you're wearing your KN95 in the flight, and not taking your mask off when others around you are, then you are, as safe as you can be. The risk is not zero, but it sounds like, from everything I've heard, that is minimal in that, you are kind of making yourself as safe as possible. So I'll check in with him, Mira, because I appreciate that question and couldn't get to it. But I would guess, just from everything I've heard, that he would say if you're taking all those precautions, your chances of not catching it in flight are very good. And if it's meaningful and important for you to go, then, consider that. All right, we'll take a short break and be back with Senator Becker. Since the pandemic, Bay Area transit systems have seen a massive decline in ridership. That worries climate scientists and regional planners who believe getting people out of their cars and onto public transportation is a key component of building a better Bay Area. State Senator Josh Becker from San Mateo has introduced a new bill to address one stumbling block to improve transit, and Senator Becker joins us live right now. Nice to have you here.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
I guess the fact that we're even talking about this, the big picture question is transit in trouble here?
Well, listen, we had pre-pandemic one of the worst congestions in the nation, second actually only to Los Angeles, and ridership has gone down since then. But we have the makings of a world-class transit system, but we're not there. And that's really what this bill is about. I think people here feel we should have a world-class transit system. And that's what this bill is about. One of the big things is for a world-class transit system is to have integration of fares and integration of schedules. And that's really what this bill does.
I want to say integration is not easy when you have, what, 26, 27 transit systems? 27?
Exactly, exactly.
When I was a transportation beat reporter like 2 decades ago here, I was shocked to learn that we had, so many transit systems, and each with its own fare system, each with its own car, each with its own plan, and routes, and they don't always talk to each other. I'm going to put up a map because I think this may be part of what you're talking about, and this is from an organization I think called Seamless Bay Area, where they have a map of their vision of a unified transit system. Are you hoping for something like this? Because when you look at this, you see, well, it seems to cover all of our region, but still right now, I can't always get to where I need to go very easily.
Well, that's great. Yes, I've actually partnered with them, and that's, again, what we're trying to do here, move to a seamless Bay Area. Right now, it's too hard to get from point A to point B. And many have to pay transfer penalties, extra fees, if you move from one system to another. And this, of course, particularly affects low-income riders, transit-dependent riders, and those that if they miss one connection, they miss one bus, they're late for work and they're in deep trouble. And that's one of the things we're trying to fix here with this bill. Yes, we need to move to that vision.
Right, because when you go on one system, for example, you go on BART or another agency's website and you go, I want to get from here to here. Do they tell you, like, oh, well, you take, for this leg, you take this system and then you transfer to this on this other system? How does it work, like technology-wise? Do they talk to each other?
No, not enough, certainly. I mean, that's one of the problems. It's not, the learning curve is very steep right now. And it discourages people from using transit altogether. And, riders shouldn't have to navigate, right? They should be able to look and go. So that's what this is about: better maps, better signs, smarter connections between buses, trains, light rail, and ferries. I mean, it's literally about, creating a new map of transit in the Bay Area. It's literally about that kind of wayfinding piece. There's just not one map right now.
What about, things like monthly commuter passes? I'm not sure if the Clipper card got us there in terms of kind of, here, this pays for any and all.
Yeah, the fare integration part of this bill is really important. And the Clipper card was a good start to this, and it does help. But it just wasn't enough. And this is probably the newest and biggest really addition to this bill and what we're trying to accomplish here. But it really encourages MTC and the transit operators to produce an integrated fare structure that allows for no cost, local and local to regional transfers. And a portion of those transit operators' funding will be on the hook if they don't comply.
Got it. Okay, I understand SB 917 will be heard in the Senate Transportation Committee in the spring, right? And I know you've got lawmakers from other counties in the Bay Area that have signed on. When are you hoping all this will become reality? What's the timeline?
Well, we got to get it through the system. It's the whole annual structure of the legislature. So fortunately, we've had some good conversations with folks on the Transportation Committee, but we got to get it through the Senate and then the Assembly. So in best case scenario, we'll get this to the governor's desk around September or October.
Okay. I think this might be a separate conversation, but I think it's worth asking, do you think transit fares are too high in general? And I'm not picking on any particular transit agency, but I just happen to look on BART, like if you want to go from Walnut Creek to SFO, it's almost $12. And for a lot of people, that's an hour, after taxes of take-home pay.
Yeah, I agree with you. And there is a movement to say, hey, let's waive those fees or for certain circumstances or for low-income riders, or let's figure out a way to make it more affordable. And again, that's what this is about too. I mean, imagine that. Then you also tack on the transfer penalties and such. Again, it's just not affordable and it's not convenient. And again, for those who have been fortunate enough from this area to travel to Europe or Japan, they come back and say, why can't we have a system like that? And that's what we're going for. Again, we have the makings of a world-class system. We're just not there. And this bill, and I think, and schedule integration, fare integration will go a long way.
All right. State Senator Josh Becker, thank you so much for stopping by to talk about your plan to try to streamline the Bay Area transit systems. Really appreciate your time.
Well, good. Thank you. And I know you know a lot about this, so thanks for highlighting this.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much. Take care. Coming up next, we now know who might win big at the 2022 Academy Awards and who's snubbed. We're talking with San Francisco Chronicle film critic Mick LaSalle about this year's Oscar nominations. We'll be right back.
In commercial break.
All right, State Senator Josh Becker, too kind to say that I'm knowledgeable in this. Not exactly, but I did try to read up on it a little bit just to have a good conversation with him, and it's clear that he's given this a lot of thought, so we'll see where SB 917 goes from here. But there's no doubt that a region with 27 transit systems might need a little streamlining, whether it's on the routing front or the technology front or the administration front. Okay, we'll be right back with Mick LaSalle's picks.
Back in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back. The nominees for the 2022 Oscars have been revealed, and the countdown to Hollywood's biggest night is on. Here to break down this year's contenders, plus the snubs and surprises, is San Francisco Chronicle's film critic Mick LaSalle. Hey, Mick, how's it going?
It's going all right. How are you?
It's been a while since we've talked, so I'm really excited to have you back on. And today's the day because we have the Oscar noms. So let's start with the most prestigious honor of the ceremony. That is the nominations for Best Picture. 10 of them were released. Which were the shoo-ins and which ones were the surprises looking at that list?
I'd say Coda was a little bit of a surprise. It's something of a smaller movie. I was surprised by King Richard, although there's some people talking it up. Nightmare Alley, just because it's not that good, really. But West Side Story was a sure thing. Belfast was a sure thing. Licorice Pizza was probably a sure thing. So I'd say that's about it.
You mentioned Coda. It was a smaller film that put a big smile on my face. There is a historic nomination associated with that film as well, right?
Yeah. It was a deaf actor was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. I don't think he'll win, but it's a pretty good category, actually.
Yeah, Troy, is it Kotsur? Did I say his name right? But congratulations to him. And as you look at this list, Mick, there's always the, big studios versus indies versus streaming. How does this year's shake out, and where do they fall into those buckets?
Well, see, I haven't given that much thought, but I have to say, when I look at this list, what makes me feel good is that compared to last year, it feels like we've returned to like actual real movies.
Oh.
Last year it was just such a, it was just like tofu. It was just all these independent movies. If you ask me like what kind of movies do you like, I'd say these smaller independent movies. But the steady diet of them last year, it began to get depressing. So it's nice to see big movies like West Side Story or big grand scale movies like Power of the Dog, or movies like that, and also with big stars like Will Smith. It's just nice to see it again, because last year it was beginning to feel like we were never going to see it.
Right. Look, so overall, you think this is a pretty good year for movies, huh? For Hollywood?
I think it's a decent year of recovery. I don't think it's like an amazing year. It's not like 2018 and 2019 were really, really good years, and it seemed like it was just going to be like the beginning of a really good era. And now, maybe not so much, but I think it's catching up. We had some, really excellent movies this year. I'd say it's it's a good, solid, average year, which in of itself, I think is a success.
Okay, yeah, it seems to have a good mix. And by the way, I saw Don't Look Up and loved it. Like, loved it. I don't think it's going to win, but I loved it. Like, you know, how could it be tackling something so serious and so frightening for all the realistic components too, yet make me laugh the whole time, all through the movie? That's incredible.
I know, no, yeah, no, it was one of the funniest, most depressing movies of the year, and I thought it was terrific, and it got really just a bad reception from critics. I'm surprised. I don't get it.
I know. Sometimes you got to side with the fans on Rotten Tomatoes and not the critics. Okay, let's take a quick look at the Best Actor nominees. We have that list, but you tell me who you think is going to take it here.
I think it's going to be Will Smith, just because I think it's a pretty weak year, and also because of just who tends to win. The people who win Best Actor tend to be middle-aged, like between, and by middle-aged I mean like between 40 and 60, and they also tend to be people who've been nominated before. And so if you look, like Andrew Garfield is on the young side. And, you know, Harvey has already won. Denzel Washington is actually on the old side. And so I think it's going to be Will Smith, just based on just or if not Will Smith, Benedict Cumberbatch, because he's right in that zone.
I was going to bet on Cumberbatch because he's so popular right now. And you're right, he's in that zone. But Andrew Garfield was wonderful in Tick, Tick, Boom. And I love that movie. Okay, Best Actress. Let's throw up that list. And you tell us who you think belongs or doesn't belong there.
Well, okay. Well, who doesn't belong there is Kristen Stewart, because that was horrible, and I love Kristen Stewart. I like her in absolutely everything she's ever done.
But you called us a travesty. I saw your op-ed. What's up with? Why do you think so?
It's a disaster. She's terrible in the movie. She's doing this horrible imitation of Princess Diana. Every line she speaks, she just takes a deep breath and just expels air, and she's just it's a terrible imitation, and it's an imitation anyway, which is not really acting. I think she's just awful, and I think she's going to win, actually. Because I do think she's going to win, because if you look, the people who usually wins Best Actress is somebody who has never been nominated before, and I think maybe she's never been nominated for Best Actress, who's under the age of 35. That's another one. And everybody else is over the age of 35.
All right. Well, Mick, don't go away. We can continue to chat on Facebook Live, but hey, audience, we will see who takes home the Oscars during the 94th Academy Awards, airing live March 27th right here on ABC 7. Join us on Facebook Live as we continue to talk with Mick. Be right back. All right, so I guess you're saying, looking at history, Kristen Stewart has a chance, but it sounds like to me you're not solely blaming her. You're really more blaming the way the story or the character was written.
Yeah, well, I'm not. Yeah, well, when somebody was that, are we on Facebook Live right now?
Yeah, we're on Facebook Live. We're done with the TV.
And we're not on TV.
Right,
and we're
not
not
on TV. Correct.
Okay. Hi, everybody on Facebook Live. Okay. Yeah. All right. So, I'm not really blaming her, because when you have somebody who's good, even in garbage like Twilight, right, and then finally they're horrible.
Enjoyable garbage. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's cute. It's fun.
Yeah.
I mean, but when you have somebody like something like that, and somebody like that, and then all of a sudden they're horrible, you got to say what's going on. And I think that the whole writing of that part and the conception of that part was so misbegotten. And then, of course, any actor goes in, they say to the director, how do you like this? How about if I do it like this? And the director either says, maybe not, or yeah, that's great. Apparently he said, yeah, that's great. And she was embarrassing. If she did what she does, she just, she talks like this, right? And then 6 another words, and then she talks like this. I mean, it's just terrible.
All right. Well, we'll have to get you back on the day after the Oscars. Look, some critics say this year's nominations are a step backwards for diversity after last year's lineup. What do you attribute that to?
Well, I don't even know if that's true. I mean, so we got Will Smith and Denzel Washington in Best Actor. What do we got in Actress? Okay, well, nobody.
I mean, no doubt, whether you add it all up, Hollywood can do more, but aren't there more starring opportunities now for people of color, and why is that not reflected here necessarily? Oh,
Well, I
shoot,
mean, look-
Mick, we're out of time. My director's saying 10, we're done. There's so much
Are
to
we gonna
say.
do both?
We'll do it again soon. Thanks,
All
Mick.
right, great. All right, bye-bye.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Thank you so much for joining us on this interactive show, Getting Answers. We'll be here every weekday at 3 o'clock on air and on live stream answering your questions. World News Tonight is coming up next, and I'll see you back here at 4 o'clock today. Bye-bye.